The drive into town felt uneventful. Yet the farther I went, the emptiness pressed harder, as if the open country had weight. I'd taken the magazine assignment on impulse. After years of late nights and city scandals, I wanted something slower, cleaner. A small farming town in the middle of nowhere seemed like the right kind of quiet. I didn't expect the quiet to feel heavy, or the stillness to taste like metal on the air. I've been a reporter for more than a decade. Politics, crime, the occasional human interest piece when my editor thought I needed a rinse. This was different. I'd been sent to look into odd local customs and old superstitions in a place most maps barely bothered to name. The road into town ran narrow and straight, cutting through miles of corn. The stalks leaned tall and tasseled, moving like a slow crowd in the breeze. I cracked the window for fresh air, but the smell was wrong. Not damp soil and sweet green, but something faintly sour, like pennies rubbed between fingers. I let the glass slide up as the first houses drifted into view. Dusk had settled by the time I rolled into what passed for the square. A grocery with hand-painted specials, a diner with a tired neon open, a small post office, and a few worn storefronts lined the block the way missing teeth frame a mouth. The street was empty. The stillness made the buildings look abandoned. I parked in front of a low-slung, sun-bleached place called the Prairie Bend Inn. My notes said it was the only spot that would rent a room to strangers. The innkeeper, a woman in her 60s with deep-set lines and a frown that felt permanent, eyed me like bad weather. "You're the journalist?" she asked. "That's me," I said, offering my ID across the counter. "Here a week, doing a piece on local folklore, rituals, superstitions, the old talk nobody writes down." Her stare tightened. "Folklore, huh? Be careful where you poke. Some things hold together because you don't pry," she said. Odd, sure, but I'd heard stranger precautions from people who loved their myths. I signed the register, took the brass key, and carried my bag down a short hallway that smelled like old wood and polish. I told myself I'd be up early to start interviews. The room was small, clean enough, and musty around the edges. A single window looked past the lot and out to the black line of fields. As the sun fell, the corn moved like a dark tide under wind. Watching it made something at the base of my neck tighten, a feeling I filed under road weariness. I shut the curtains and tried to sleep. I dreamed in whispers. Voices threaded a breeze I hadn't invited in, soft and layered and almost familiar. In the dream, I walked between the rows, the leaves brushing my sleeves like dry paper. The voices drew closer, the deeper I went. One of them knew my name. I jolted awake in a room so dark it felt erased. The window was latched. My heart hammered like I'd been running. For a second, right before my eyes opened, I could have sworn someone whispered my name from right beside the bed. No one was there. I told myself it was a loud dream and waited out the quiet until sleep finally took me again. Morning meant work. I spent the day talking to whoever would talk back. Farmers, clerks, a few families who carried the place in their faces. People were kind enough, but they hated the subject I was there to chase. When I steered toward old stories and strange rules, the conversations thinned. Smiles went fixed. Answers moved sideways. I brought up the corn more than once, trying to reach the rumor I'd heard before I arrived, about the listeners and the town's habit of staying silent after dark near the fields. Most shrugged it off or found reasons to talk about something else. Only one man let the air move. He sat alone at the diner, introduced himself as Bill. He stirred his coffee long after the sugar had dissolved. "You're not from here," he guessed. "No," I replied. "You've got a rule about the fields at night?" "Folks around here don't give the rows their breath after sundown," he said. "Safer that way." "Safer how?" His eyes slid to the window, to the far horizon cut into combs by corn. "You hear things out there," he mused. "You shouldn't listen." "What kind of things?" I asked, leaning in. He thought about answering and then didn't. He sipped, still watching the distance. "Don't talk near the fields at night," he said finally. "If the wind says your name, you didn't hear it." No one else said even that much. I spent the late afternoon walking the edge roads, taking notes and photographs, trying to shake the feeling that the place was holding its breath. Birds kept out of sight. Insects skittered, then went quiet. The only sound that stuck was the rustling of corn. I went back to the inn as the light slid off the buildings. Long shadows crawled across the street. A colder wind came up and ran through the rows. From my window, I watched the fields ripple and thought about Bill's warning. Don't speak near the fields at night. After a quiet dinner at the diner, I found myself planted by the glass again. Night overtaking the rows. The wind had a way of making the dark feel close. I kept thinking about what might stand between those stalks, out of sight, but not quite out of mind. I couldn't shake the sense that the fields weren't empty, that something out there made a habit of listening. I paged through my notes. The way people avoided the subject gave the superstition a weight that facts didn't. The silence around it felt deliberate, almost rehearsed, like the town had learned to live with something by not giving it words. A hard gust rattled the window and cut through my thoughts. The corn bent and then stood back up. If I stared too long, I thought I saw figures slipping between the rows, shadows that didn't belong to anything. I told myself it was a trick of the dark. It was close to midnight. Before I could talk myself out of it, I put on a jacket, took my notebook, and left the room quietly. The lobby was empty. The town had already locked itself away. The cold surprised me when I stepped outside. I zipped up and headed for the fields. They loomed taller at night. The leaves whispered to each other as the wind moved through. At the edge of the rows, I stopped and listened. Reason told me to turn around. Pride told me I wasn't here to follow rules. The rule was simple. Don't speak near the fields at night. It was a rule for locals. I wasn't one of them. "Is anyone out there?" I asked. The wind died, as if someone pinched the line shut. The corn stilled. The quiet that followed had edges. No answer. No movement. Just a deeper silence than I thought possible. I exhaled. Embarrassed at myself for letting a story scare me, I turned to go, and that's when I heard it. A voice, soft and far away. "Help me," they said in a faint, frightened voice from a distance. I stopped. The voice came from the field, buried somewhere inside the rows, thin, almost lost to the breeze. But there. "Please, help me," it said again, closer now. A woman's voice, worn thin by fear. Every part of me said to leave. I took one step forward instead. The corn seemed to make room. The leaves brushed my sleeves like caution. "Where are you?" I called. A pause. Then, "In here. I'm lost," they said in a whimper. I stood at the boundary, hands shaky with cold or nerves or both. The voice sounded real, human. I stepped into the rows.